It seemed, though, that their Oui, Martha. Oui.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this final oral presentation of our P19 cohort for their second year projects of this master. We are really happy to welcome you here and online, so thank you for being here. It's not working. I don't know why. Sorry for that. So let's start again. Yes, it's working now. Sorry for this. So, just as a quick reminder for what are the M2 projects. So you're going to see 6 teams of 9 to 12 students that are organized as studios. So you have a representative of each specialty we have in the school. And each of these teams worked on the conception and part of the pre-production of a game. So you're going to see 6 games today, 3 this morning, 3 this afternoon. They had only 4 months to work on their conception and pre-production part of the project. And they have to deliver a sort of vertical slice. We know that 4 months is quite short to do a proper pre-production phase, so just have in mind that they had only 4 months. And they were followed by a jury of professionals through the way. So this is the 3rd encounter with the jury, the final one, so 4 months after the start. So I want to thank warmly all the juries, so to have been part of the process all the way. You still have the role to ask questions, share feedbacks with them, and also to complete the final evaluation file. So thanks to you here and online. A particular thank to the godfather, Jan van der Kruisen, who was there along the way as well. So thank you for being part of this too. It's important to have feedbacks from you as well. So you're going to have the heavy charge of giving the final conclusion for today. So just get prepared. Bit of pressure for the start. But enough for my talk. Let's enjoy the day. So 6 teams, 6 games. Each of them have, I made a mistake, 30 minutes presentation, and then we're going to have 20 minutes question and answers. So let's go. And please, thank you. And please welcome the first team of the day, Monster Inside.
Sacha, c'est pas un exercice.
On est ensemble, d'accord.
Ensemble. Imagine si maman savait ce qui se passe. Et s'il nous arrive quelque chose.
Il va rien nous arriver.
Welcome in Monster Inside. In the team we have Rémi, Ajay and Hélène as our game artists. Sam is our UX designer and user researcher. Gorik designs the sound and music of the game. Tanguy and Mathieu are our programmers. Marie and Maëlo take care of the game, level and narrative design. I am the producer of the project. And we received the help of Loris, our VFX artist, and Sohan and Yelena, who dubbed our main characters.
Monster Inside is an asymmetrical, horrific game. It is for 2 players, and its gameplay is cooperation-oriented. It will be first released in a local format, with 2 players having to play on the same hardware, but it will be later released in a cooperation online mode. We aim to release on PCs and consoles with a total game duration of 4 to 6 hours. But what is the pitch of the game? In Monster Inside, you and your twin are confined inside of your school. For a not-so-exercise, anti-monster exercise, you will need to assert your individualities in order to escape from the monsters, and later reveal the truth to the outside world. But beware, maybe the real monsters aren't really those you're running from.
Now let's talk about the context and universe of our game. In this universe, a siren regularly sounds to warn of the apparition of monsters. Their origin is still unknown, but humanity has learned to react softly to those apparitions. Any child or adult know the protocol in case of a monster apparition, and the buildings have also been adapted to protect their occupants.
We want the story to take place in a high school in some alternative 90s. We use inspirations from retro theories, but also from real high school. Our universe is set between the reality of a high school life and the fantasy of monsters. These monsters are represented in 3D in our game, whereas the monsters are represented in 2D, to create a contrast between them. The staging and light effects of our world serve the narration and highlights specific events, like in the game Inside and Little Nightmare.
For the environment, we want to move away from an atmosphere plunged into darkness. We prefer to play with shadows and twilight, creating an environment lit by colored light to contrast with a less saturated decor. In addition, we want to have places with warm atmosphere that offer a break from moment of crafting and narration. This more comfortable dynamic is graphically interrupted by the light, which began to flicker and plunge the room in a bluish darkness and arrogant tension.
So this brings us to tell you more about our monster. So please, everyone, be quiet. Okay, I think we're safe now. So, as I said, thank you. Be careful, because this monster might not be able to see, but they can definitely hear you, the players.
So it's really important that our players feel the monster presence, and to do so, as you can see, we choose to separate our levels into 3 different zones, each one with a specific type of reverb. Therefore, players can track how far the monster is just with sounds, and with the addition of sound spatialization and occlusion, players clearly feel when the monster comes closer, and knowing that it can rush to them at any moment, it creates a lot of anxiety. Moreover, players need to be quiet to not attract the monster, and to make them better feel their impact on the environment. Interactive sounds are designed to feel loud with powerful and short attack times, which fade in the reverb. All of that sets the player and their actions in a hopeless, isolated, and dangerous space.
And evolving in this environment, the twins Clémentine and Sacha. The characters have strong and contrast identities, which are part of an alternative universe close to the one we might know, with retro inspiration. Clémentine is a transgender woman who begins to assert herself, and which transcribes into a punk style. She wears a CNES fanny pack demonstrating her interest in science. This desire remains discreet, and she sometimes wraps herself up in her mother's scarf as if to isolate herself from the environment around her. As for Sacha, he seeks to be a conventional figure and fulfill the protective role of his late father, to whom he was very close. He wears his shoes in his memory and cherishes them. He is a sporty guy who is part of the school gym club.
And now that you've met Clémentine and Sacha, let's enjoy a small gameplay session of our vertical slice. I must warn you that this video might include arachnophobia content. Please welcome your 2 new favorite streamers, Malotru and Midcajou.
Et yo, donc nous voilà enfin, désolé du retard. On se retrouve aujourd'hui donc en compagnie de Malotru. Salut. Et on va continuer le monstre dedans. Et oui, ou plutôt Monster Inside. Wouh. Bon, t'as bien voulu venir jouer finalement.
Oui, malgré tout, j'ai bien voulu revenir.
Même si c'est un petit peu, ça fait un peu peur, c'est vrai.
Mais comme cette fois-ci on est en coop local, je me suis dit que quand même. Oui. Merci de m'accueillir.
Merci d'être venu, hein, c'est sympa aussi de te recevoir à la maison. Ça te dit qu'on y est?
Ouais, est-ce qu'on peut juste se reprendre les contrôles 2 secondes en main?
Carrément, carrément. Alors, je vais lancer tout ça. Tac, 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 tac. Hop. Et c'est parti. Alors,
ouais.
Ah oui, on reprend les personnages de la dernière fois.
Team
Allez.
Clémentine en perso,
Ma team
désolée.
Sacha de mon côté, donc voilà.
Rebelle qui fait exploser des trucs.
Yeah, voilà, stylé de fou. Moi j'avoue, j'adore crocheter, je pense que c'est un petit truc de... Je sais pas, je trouve ça trop satisfaisant, c'est
Ouais,
ma petite méditation,
dépêche-toi,
quoi.
ouais.
C'est bon. Ok, super, bon j'ai récupéré de la poudre, hein, je crois que ça s'appelle. Hein. Ouais. Tac, ah ouais, ok. Ouais, super, je saute. Ouais. Ok, ça, ok, pour s'accroupir. Ça va assez vite finalement les contrôles. Hein.
Ouais, franchement, c'est
la
assez
quoi
naturel.
Let's go.
On va tellement vite comme ça.
Mais oui, de fou, c'est trop bien. J'adore cette mécanique. Ok.
Bah, moi, ça va. Hein.
Ouais, bah let's go. Écoute, on va repartir. Hop, retourner au menu et pouvoir lancer l'épisode 2. Yeah. Parfait. Mais oui, donc la dernière fois, on s'était arrêté à la fin de l'épisode 1. On n'avait pas pu s'enfuir par la porte de sortie. Mais là, on y retourne direct. Voilà, ça recommence direct.
Oui, je voulais un produit pour... tu peux projeter un truc là.
Ah oui, yes. Tu voulais un produit, ouais.
Mais je sais plus, il faut qu'on aille chercher quelque chose.
Qu'est-ce qu'on fait?
On continue. On est juste à côté du labo.
T'es sûr de toi?
Avec le potassium, on pourra se défendre.
Ouais, sauf si on meurt avant.
Oui, c'est ça le...
Votre attention, s'il vous plaît, ceci n'est pas un exercice. Un spécimen s'est introduit dans l'ensemble de l'établissement.
Sans blague.
Ceci n'est pas un exercice. Le lycée est officiellement confiné. Veuillez trouver un abri proche et attendre l'intervention des autorités. Suivez les consignes de vos professeurs. Toute confrontation avec le spécimen vous expose à un danger mortel.
Ouais, je crois, en sautant.
T'as vu l'onde?
Je peux pas passer, non.
Ok, vas-y, je m'en occupe. Baisse-toi.
Ok.
Yes. Tu penses qu'elle nous a entendus?
Je sais pas, il a l'air d'être
Ça me
parti.
rappelle le TD avec ce tocard de joueur.
Y a eu une explosion ici ou quoi?
Heureusement pour lui, il y a que la table qui a pris.
Ok, je pense que tu peux essayer.
Tiens. Ça rien fait du tout.
Ok, bon. Je voulais dire, peut-être que cesser de viser les produits chimiques là par terre, ça va faire quelque chose. C'est une réaction. Ouais, let's go. Coup de pression là. Ouais. Franchement, fou. Ok, c'est en mode là.
Ok.
Alors, vraiment j'y étais.
Ok, j'arrive.
C'est pas fini. On n'est pas encore sorti d'affaire.
T'as raison. Il est rangé où ton potin machin là?
Potassium. Tu vas en cours ou pas, toi? Là-dedans. Fais ton truc de voleur. S'il te plaît.
Truc de voleur tout de suite. Elle peut parler la pyromane?
Sacha Jeanne, hein? Bouge-toi ou je te grille les niches.
Ça va, c'est bon. C'est pas vrai. Tu ressembles de plus en plus à maman.
Imagine si maman savait ce qui se passe. Et s'il nous arrive quelque chose.
Il va rien nous arriver. Regarde, tu peux compter sur moi et mes trucs de voleur.
Je les aime trop.
Ouais.
Clémentine! C'est bon. Cours!
Je crois qu'elle est pas loin. Pourquoi je sors? C'est assez que ça en fait, du coup. Je pense que.
Non. Désolée. T'inquiète, c'est pas grave.
J'ai cru qu'elle partirait jamais.
Elle?
On bouge. On n'est pas en sécurité ici.
C'est clair.
Je peux pas coucher.
Mais je crois qu'il y avait un truc au début de la salle.
Oui, un peu vert. J'ai pas vu qu'elle était là.
Ouais, j'ai pas vu ce que ça avait fait, non, je sais pas.
Ah, il y a un truc qui bouge là. Il y a un truc de truc et tout. Non, un peu peur. Non. Non, je me cache. Je m'abandonne pas. Elle bouge. Ok. Non.
Ok. Bon, la prochaine, c'est la bonne. Oh merde. Je l'ai eu vraiment... Non.
T'inquiète, à 3.
1, 2, 3.
Pas le choix.
Tu crois qu'il y a d'autres élèves dans les couloirs comme nous?
J'espère pas pour eux. Avec un peu de chance, tout le monde a pris la sirène de l'exercice au sérieux. Pas comme moi.
Clémentine, passe-moi ta main.
C'est toi, Johan?
Ça va?
Many thanks to our two beautiful rising stars of Enjmin lives.
So, I don't know about you, but I feel like we just witnessed something really important.
Yes, it's true. It seems like the truth behind the monster operation is that the teenagers are the ones who turn into monsters.
Oh my god, do you know why?
Yes, actually, I do. Teens are actually changing into their own complex. They're way more sensible to transformation than adults, as they feel the judgmental look of others.
Okay. Could it be that as they change into monsters, they in reality embrace their true self? And wait, maybe they start to see the others, the ones who were judgmental at first, as the real monsters?
That's exactly it. Have you talked to the devs or something? Well, when they change, in their own eyes, they still look human. But for example, their shadows reveal their new nature.
Sick. And so what about the adults?
They do have difficulties to understand the teens. That's why they hide the truth until they can find a way to get the teens back to normal. Our main characters are struggling with gender stereotypes, but the main theme of our game is the teenage angst.
Makes sense. Okay, and about the story in itself, could you talk a bit more about that?
Yes, so our story takes place during a whole day at the Félicie de Lettres High School, during what was supposed to be a simple anti-monster exercise.
And of course, the twins follow the pre-established rules.
Actually, no. Clémentine and Sacha begin the story in quite a rough spot. Clémentine, they don't really understand each other anymore. Clémentine is even skipping class, and she's the one to warn Sacha that there is a real monster wandering in the corridors.
Okay, so they are separated and they need to get back together somehow, because maybe like even in hard times, family comes first for them?
Yes, exactly. That is their goal for the first episode.
And then?
Then they will try to reach the exit, but the usual one is inaccessible. So they have to find another one and how to defend themselves on the way.
That is why they end up on the science floor, right? To get some chemicals for Clementine to craft?
Exactly. And talking about Clementine's ability, Sasha and her are rediscovering each other's uniqueness and likableness along the episode.
Which make them finding some kind of common ground again.
Yes, after not taking the time to talk and understand each other for a while, they finally see their twin under a new light.
But, on their way out, they see a teen changing into a monster.
This leads us to our third episode, which, with the revelations behind the monster's outbreak, where our twins manage to reach the schoolyard and make their way to the gymnasium.
Which is where they discover the awful truth. The adults, in order to protect the teens, imprisoned the monsters into the basement to conduct experiments on them.
So they are the real monsters in the story then.
Kind of, as well as miscommunication and misjudgment. The twins' relationship is put to the test here, with new hardships to face, and their bond is what makes them stronger.
So cool, but the adults found them in a difficult position, right? The twins wanted to do something about these teens.
That is what leads us to our final episode. The twins are separated again, and locked in the basement with the other monster teens.
Now comes the time to set everyone free, right?
Right. Somehow, Clementine and Sasha will get each other's abilities for a while before turning into monsters too.
So now they can understand more their sibling.
And as they both embracing theirs and their siblings' identity, they'll get to the roof in order to reveal the truth to the outside world.
To reinforce the twin relationship, we have some special co-op mechanics and system. Running together allows you to run faster, quite practical to flee from monsters. Some interactions need to be carried out together. Your combined strengths enable you to open doors you couldn't open alone. The bark system gives feedback to important action, but also puts the emphasis.
Alors, dépouille qui?
Puts the emphasis on the link between the twins. Clémentine can react to Sasha's action and reciprocally.
Qu'est-ce qu'il y a là-dedans?
T'as trouvé quelque chose?
Et hop.
From what you've already seen, you've already discovered most of the basic mechanics of the game, from the movements of the characters to their interaction between each other and about their environment. However, each individual ability, so specific to a character, has multiple stages. For example, Clementine unlocks a new firecracker that costs more resources to craft, but is able to stun monsters. Likewise, Sasha, in episode 3, will find a crowbar that allows him to break locks faster, but is also far more noticeable for the enemies. Later on, in episode 4, Clementine and Sasha's players will exchange mechanics for a while, but this will be so much more difficult to crack, as our characters aren't used to them. Finally, when our protagonists will turn into monsters, they will discover that their usual mechanics have grown much stronger. With this, our players will now feel very powerful as a way to convey our message.
The monsters that the player face act as frightened teenagers just looking for help. For example, Coralie is a young girl who has a hard time accepting her period. Terrified of being at the center of rumors, she regularly hides in the school toilets. Dealing alone with her complex, she finds herself overwhelmed by the situation, blinded by the blood that never stops flowing. As a monster, her insecurities transcribes through a floral and bloody form. She follows sound as she's so focused on what people can say about her. When she recognizes the twins' voices, she runs towards them, hoping they can help her, not aware that they will not recognize her.
Johan is a school bully. Almost invisible at home, he tries his best to be the most recognizable one at school. When he finds himself alone in the house with no one to acknowledge him, he changes too. As a monster, he absorbs light and rejects electricity as a way to shine even more, oblivious to the harm he can do to others. Other monsters will be encountered by our twins in the narration, but these two are the main ones our duo will have to face, gameplay-wise.
So, as you've seen, Coralie is the main monster you encounter in our vertical slice. Regarding her behavior, we designed her AI by dividing the sounds she hears into two categories. Small sounds, like a broken object, jumping, and claque-doigt that draws a bit of the monster's attention. And big sounds, like running, big bounds, or using the crowbar that makes the monster run towards it. When she doesn't hear anything, she wanders in the hallways from a point of interest to another until something catches her attention. Joanne would follow a similar pattern, but with lights and electrical elements.
As we are designing a game with a story and intentions we want to convey through it, we did think about how we can cleverly divide this narration. Our narrative structure consists of 4 episodes of approximately 1 hour. You may wonder, why this division in episode? Our intentions were focused on reproducing a teen series vibe. With this in mind, we decided to create a fragmented story, with meaningful chapters that each generate tension and builds up toward the final resolution. It also helps the narration to be delivered the way we want it to be. Waiting a bit between the chapters would be best to enjoy the story and the development of our characters, as our themes and plot are subject to a time of reflection and to theories. Why is this episode length? It allows our 2 players to enjoy short game sessions, 1 to 2 hours maximum. It also lets them match their schedules that are not always compatible, as finding the time to play with someone can be harder than finding the time to play alone.
Now, let's talk about our user experience. For the game accessibility, we have the following features. In-game controls and in-menu controls can be remapped for each character. There are subtitles for every gameplay sounds and narration dialogues. They can be modified to player preferences by changing the color, opacity of the text and background, and also changing the speaker name in front of the subtitles. There is also the possibility to activate game rule modifiers like auto-revive with an input, a button to give you crafting powder or directly firecrackers, and also an option to invert Clementine aiming direction, reverse or normal. There are 2 additional pillars only present in the final game that we want to present you. An auto-aim system with 3 different throw trajectories. The player can activate this mode with an input, switch between throw trajectories with the right stick, and throw the firecracker with the same input as normally. There is also a content warning system. The menu linked to this system is automatically opened at the first launch of the game. This lets the player change the experience to their likings before playing it. If the system is activated, players can skip trigger involving gameplay sequences with the press of a button, getting all of the items available in the section and a narrative and contextual recap. Now let's talk a little bit about user interface. In order to define the menus for our game, we use Figma to produce a few prototypes designed to give it a vision of our menus and how to help their integration later. This allowed us to clearly define the content and way to navigate in the menus. We also recently did a title screen with an episode selection menu for the gameplay video presented earlier. Next, Louise will talk you about the production of the game.
Yeah, now let's talk a bit about the production and what's surrounding it. To sum up what I've been told, our key selling points are illustrating well the core pillars of our game. We want to create an experience centered on getting frightened together by a strong narration, with many cliffhangers along the way. The asymmetrical gameplay reinforces the link between the 2 characters and the players behind, and also creates replayability. And lastly, we want to let the player enjoy the mood of an alternative universe, inspired by French high schools in the 90s, with a teen series vibe. With those aspects in mind, we conducted a few studies to start identifying competitors. We split those competitors into 2 categories: cooperative horror games and asymmetrical cooperation games. It proved thus the market exists for both of those categories. The mix of those 2 kinds of games is even illustrated by the soon-to-come Little Nightmare 3. As we'll try to reach the market with our game, we have to keep in mind that the game is about 5 hours long, but one owner of the game can share the experience with someone else who does not need to buy it. The players can also replay the whole game by switching sides, thanks to the asymmetry. The game will be sold as a whole, on Steam at first, As the game would cost 552,000 euros to produce, we plan to sell it 17 euros and 99 cents. The turnover on one sale should be about 9 euros, with the game globally selling more during discounts period. Taking this into account, we can calculate an approximation of how many copies we should sell during the first week after the release of the game to ensure we'll reach the break-even point in 1 year. But how are we going to produce the game itself? To produce the experience we want to deliver, we are currently in the pre-production process. Our main goals are to get rid of uncertainties and produce a vertical slice. Talking about the production itself, we would focus on the narrative structure and produce the game chapter after chapter. One production unit is one chapter and takes approximately 4 months and a half. The 4 episodes will take 18 months. The production of the first and last chapters would take more time because of the need for an appealing onboarding and a polished ending. Our staff plan would evolve through the production to fit the technical and creative needs of each chapter. Our strategy would be to start working with an agile methodology during the pre-production in order to allow us to iterate with the design. We will then switch to a waterfall approach as soon as we'll start the production. We would like to thank you a lot for your attention, and we hope you'll come to see us and try to be Clémentine and Sacha for a few minutes.
Thank you. So who wants to start first with questions or comments? For the people who are online, do not hesitate to raise hand. I can see them on my screen. And don't forget to present yourself before asking questions. Yes.
Hi. Hello. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very nice. I loved the little act as streamers. I think I can talk from all of us, the jury, that you made an excellent work. And so congrats for that. My question was about the content warning system, because I designed one myself and I gave you some resources and I think you applied them. And it was interesting because there is this ability to skip a passage, but I imagine that in your game, if I had arachnophobia, for example, I would miss like more than half of the game. That would probably be a problem. So yeah, my question was about, is content warning a good solution for this kind of content that I could encounter?
Okay, so thank you for your question and feedback. I think for the content warning system, it will mostly be part of the narration, like because we will talk about some topic that may not be for everyone. And for the arachnophobia, as you mentioned, I think we could have something that just make the legs disappear. So you just have something that is floating around, but it's still something, you know. I don't know if someone wants to add something to my answer. Some maybe.
And for arachnophobia content, because one of our monsters is heavily based on it, I thought of arachnophobia mod, like in Satisfactory, when the arachnid is replaced with cat heads, a thing like that in our accessibility menu. But I didn't get in the presentation.
Okay, thank you. I was just, my question was globally about how can we make an horror game feel safe? And is it something that we want to do? And I don't think there is an answer. I'm just giving you my thoughts. But yeah, I think that would be a great challenge for accessibility designers.
One point, I find something about the remake of Dead Space. They blur the gory elements in game, and this can be a solution.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to ask question? Comment. Thank you, Mylène.
Hello, Milan. I do marketing for Raccoon Business. Congrats for the presentation. The streamer things was a really great idea. It was fun and it's a nice way to showcase the game. I would love to see the gameplay part before it because I think it's helped to understand better what you do in the video. For example, I didn't understand if lockpicking is a minigame or just an action. I was not sure. And yeah, it's nice. You sent me an email about marketing break-even, and this is great to reach out to people to know more about this kind of stuff. So I'm happy about it. That's like do marketing. It's nice and it's useful. I will talk with you because I don't understand how you calculate the number of units. It's more like 10K units you need to sell the first week to be break-even in 3 years. But we will discuss it later. Don't worry. That's okay.
Can you?
No, we don't.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You were talking about the break-even point and also how many copies sell.
Yeah.
Okay. During the first week, I calculated that we need to sell 20,000 copies, which is a lot.
Okay.
That's why I'm still working on the calculation.
Okay, we can discuss this later
Cool.
if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just checking if online we do have questions. Not yet. Do not hesitate. If you have even comments. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Thomas. I'm an environment artist. Thank you for our presentation. It was quite polished. You must have rehearsed a lot. So yeah, thank you for that. It was nice. I want to talk about art a bit. It's quite nice. I think that you nailed the almost not totally horrific, but still a horror-induced atmosphere. So it works. You could have. In your presentation, you have images that illustrate that are blurry, I think, or there's a filter or something like that, and it blurs the details. And I think that for your style and your characters that are very stylized, you could have used more blurry texture, less detailed, because it seems a bit too realistic for your style, I think, to have the little plaster mold and stuff like that. But anyways, lighting and mood is really nice. Same thing for the legs of the creature, which are a little bit buggy. I guess you have spent a lot of time working on that, and it's cool. And the projects are there for that too. But sometimes less is more, and just making a simple animation that you can just play, it's maybe more efficient. But we all do that in projects because it's fun to try big things, so yeah. But that was my remarks. I'm stopping now. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Just a little note. I'm Cécile from Focus Entertainment. Just a little note about the animation. I really like what you did on the characters being 2D and the animations feeling a bit awkward, but with the 2D characters, they look like paper cutouts, sort of. And I think it's a clever way of being a bit cheap on the production side, but efficient in game. So good work with that. It was clever.
Thank you for your feedback. I'm just checking if there's some other feedbacks or questions. I know it's the beginning of the day. Okay, I don't see any. No more? No more? So if there's no more remarks, feedbacks, so let's congratulate again the team. Thank you, and let's welcome the next team, which is a Kelts Ode. as we are a bit ahead of time, just the time the team is settling, I just want to remind you here for the jury which is here, do not hesitate at lunchtime and at the end of the day to go see directly the teams in their boxes so you can try and you can play the vertical slice they have developed. Everything is developed, it's playable, so please go and exchange directly with them. Thanks.
Hello everyone. Welcome for the Kelso presentation. Balance is broken. The world around you crumbles, cracks, slowly sinks. Landscapes are reshaped, and the ground is engulfed by water, causing the familiar to vanish. The creatures all in agony, driven mad by the loss of their bearings, searching for a new equilibrium they cannot reach. Corruption spreads, trapping what once was. This is a tale of mourning, of grief, of how the goddess's sorrow flooded the land of her children. A tale of how our ancestors found a way to survive. Welcome to A Celt's Ode.
So, A Celt's Ode is a single-player tactical RPG with a big emphasis on creating its unique world that is inspired by the Celtic culture and history. The game is designed with mouse and keyboard control in mind. It was designed as a computer game from the start, meaning that our game is mostly destined to seasoned tactical RPG players. Overnight, the world you knew suddenly changed. The water rose, the land sank. You see what you knew destroyed. A Celt's Ode narrates a Celt myth that could have existed, a fictional myth built on the foundation of historical research. We call that a numifia. Your objective? Find a solution to this disaster. Go to the gods to find out what's going on, or look for a new place to live, far from the flooding. A Celt's Ode offers two phases that alternate several times through the game, exploration and encounter. You'll follow the story of four characters, Garaluca, Caturigan, Malgorix, and Kudoleno, four Celts determined to save their tribes. However, in the vertical slice, you will only play Caturigan and Garaluca. As they advance on the expedition, the group was trapped by the collapse of the ground, weakened by the mourning. The mourning is like a corruption caused by the tears shed by the mothers of all things, the goddess Devana. They are taken by surprise and unable to react. The group was split in two. And now, you are no news from Kudoleno and Margorix. We'll soon show you a video of the exploration phase of the vertical slice. The exploration lets you interact with the world of Celt's Ode. You discover the extent of the corruption called the mourning. Everything in the game is narrated by a druidess to anchor the story as a myth, and it brings the oral tradition of the Celts into our game's narrative. The characters, on the other hand, don't speak, they sing because it's an ode. Now, we'll dive deeper into the game's narrative and world by showing you an exploration sequence. Everything that we're going to show you are video recorded in real time, but you will be able to play the game afterwards if you want.
A Celt's Ode is a single-player, tactical role-playing game. It is a myth told by a druidess to her tribe.
It seemed, though, that their progress was not to long remain without surprises. As they made their way through the caves, the heavy ceiling gave way to the open skies once again. The world that they knew appeared transformed. Surrounding them, strange and twisted growths rose their spindly appendages, struggling towards the sky. They looked to have taken possession of the once sacred place of worship.
The druidess is the narrator that you just heard, and her voice will accompany you throughout the entire adventure.
They looked like porous stones. What could they be?
This myth that she's recounting you is the story of Caturigan and Garaluca, two Gaulish women who lost their home and tribe to a mysterious disaster.
Fascinated by the terrible sight, Garaluca could not refrain from getting closer to the dreadful growths.
The land is sinking, the water rising, and a terrible corruption called the mourning is spreading. Our heroes seek understanding, survival, and more importantly, a new home.
What do you think she did then?
As you listen to the druidess's story, she let you help tell the tale. Since the Celts had strong oral traditions, their stories might have been told a little differently every time. Here the druidess playfully lets her audience, that is you, participate. Let's play it safe and not touch the morning growths.
Garaluka refrained from touching the strange thing, trying not to worry her wife any further.
Some choices may seem insignificant, some are obviously major, but they all have consequences. We wanted a strong granularity to the reactiveness of the text, so we are using ink to that end.
Indeed, in front of her, the appendages had taken root inside the Tarvacon's body. The ancient stone guardian laid immobile on the damp floor, lifeless. Katarrigan anxiously pulled her companion away from the corrupted creature and hastened her steps, dragging her along.
And so the game is split between narrative exploration like this and tactical encounters.
As she took stock of their surroundings, Garaluka noticed the sacred stones that stood around them. They were older than the soil itself. Although the corruption was almost smothering them, they still exhaled hints of the stories they once told. She hoped to soon pray to the All-Mother and maybe, just maybe, find some answers.
There is an encounter just ahead that you will see in a little bit.
But their path soon came to an end at the edge of the chasm. And the two women froze in fear. The open ground under their feet was sprawling with those horrible, quivering polyps. The mother's altar was surrounded by these vermin. The guardian Tarvacons swarming in the hall seemed to be suffering deeply from the black corruption.
But before we show you some gameplay of the encounters, let's take a look at the gameplay loop of these encounters. At the start of every turn, you will see the enemy's intent, which is what they are going to do this turn. This gives you information that you can use to outplay them through careful planning and positioning. But you will need it because you can only select one character every turn, so you still have to choose carefully and make good use of what you know. That character can then use game actions, like stabilizing or tuning, to shift the course of an encounter. Then all the enemies play their turns. This is when the start of turn threat comes to bear. And finally, the morning rises by a set amount every turn. If the morning meter at the top of the screen is ever full, you drown, you lose the game. You actually have to complete specific objectives before the time is up. This takes the focus away from direct combat. You cannot be just pacifying the enemies in order to win. You have to do specific tasks and balance them. Here are a few of the game's actions you can attune to pacify the beasts. You are not dealing damage to them, you are liberating them from the morning, and then they leave the encounter peacefully. You can solace in order to reduce the morning meter and gain some time to complete more objectives. You can stabilize sinking areas in order to save them from the morning. The characters are symmetric, with each their own toolkits, and they will grow over the course of the game so that you'll be able to customize their abilities. Garaluka, for instance, it means brilliant shout, is a druidess. She is fast, nimble, and very good at attuning with the beasts. Katarrigan, which means battle queen, is a warrior. She used to work in the salt mines, like many Celtic women. She is sturdy and good at stabilizing areas. Let's hop back into our gameplay and take a look at an actual encounter to show you how this all fits together. Power to the powerful. So here we are, back into the game. And at the start of an encounter, you can see the objectives that are available for this map. Things like stabilizing areas, moving a certain number of tiles, or pacifying some beasts. At the bottom here, you can see how many objectives are required for completion in the map.
The wheel of time never stops. The time to act was now.
So we just have to complete 4 objectives out of those 7 here on the right. We don't have to do everything, but we do have to do it before this ominous meter at the top fills up. This is the morning meter. It is a corruption that sinks the land. It will be feedbacked by those dark coral growths here on the map that you will see encroaching upon the area as it rises. If it is ever full, you lose, you drown, it's over. At the bottom of the screen here, we have our characters, Katerigan and Garaluka. They all have asymmetric toolkits, different abilities you can see on the right here, that you will need to make the best of in order to win. Let's pick Katerigan this turn, since we can only pick a single character. Notice how the music changes the moment I activate her. Let me raise the volume a little so you can hear it better. So, Katerigan, she is sturdy, she's got a lot of life points, but she's not very mobile. I've already used her single movement point. She cannot move anymore. Thankfully, she has an ability to sacrifice some life in order to gain movement. Sacrifices were very important to Celtic religion. And let's look now at this highlighted area. This is an area particularly affected by the mourning, by the corruption, as you can tell by the coral growth all over it. These areas are very important because not only are there objectives for stabilizing those areas, but these objectives are special. If I don't stabilize at least one area, I cannot win the encounter. This adds an element of tactical positioning to the challenge. Notice how the morning shrunk when I stabilized? I've used all my action points and all my movement points, and so I just end the turn now.
Morning oil dripped from the Tava cones.
Now all the enemies will act. They will all do the same action because they are the same type of enemies. I could have taken 1 less point of damage if I had been more careful. Now, since Katerigan's inside the area, she adds to the stabilization. And the enemies add to the mourning.
All feared the rising waters.
And at the end of the turn, the mourning rises.
The wheel of time doesn't wait.
Here we are, back at the start of the turn. And now you see the enemy's intent. This turn, the Tavakons are only moving by 2. We need to exploit this. It means they are preparing a big attack.
Oh, how they seized fate by the chains.
Let's activate Garaluka this turn. She's very good at attuning with the enemies. Notice how the music changes differently? Let's attune with this Tavakon. As we attune, the coral growth on the Tavakon's back are shrinking as well. We are relieving them from the pain of the mourning. And once that's done, the mourning growths have disappeared and the Tavakon leaves the encounter peacefully. No more movement points, no more action points. We can just end the turn.
The Tavakons were agitated.
And so we would continue like this until we completed the required number of objectives, or we lose, either because all our characters have been exhausted, they do not die in battle, or because the mourning meter is full and we fucking drowned. There are many ways to play through this, even this simple map. Adapting to the enemy's intent is key. We hope you will enjoy finding your own path to victory in a Keltsode on the plateau later today.
So now let's continue a bit about what we just saw, and let's talk about the UI. So our UI is divided into three main parts. On the lowest side, you can see all interactable elements, the characters, their actions, and the next turn button. The right side is dedicated to the objectives, as well as the player's progression throughout these objectives. On the upper side, you can see how many objectives are completed. And finally, on the upper side of the screen, is the morning meter, indicating how many turns are left, and also in which phases of the combat you are right now. Overall, our goal with the UI was for it to differentiate itself from the rest of the game in terms of shape, colors, for it to be easily readable.
We use every tool at our disposal to convey information to the players. It's not just the UI, but the camera and visual effects play an integral part in our feedback systems. Playtest and eye track. Playtest and eye tracking tools were essential to help us understand when the players would gaze in the right direction and when they would miss crucial informations. We added more and more feedbacks for every action as the game's development went on, like on the area control mechanics.
Yet, the morning still grew.
Another example, let's take a look at the morning phase and its link with the turn limit system, one of the most difficult mechanics to explain to the players. We can see the camera moves to show how the corals on the map react, the highlighting on the morning meter, the main cycle emitting light, and the next feedback appearing on screen. All these elements work together to communicate what's happening to the players. Now let's talk about the visuals and art direction of a Kelt's Ode.
In that regard, it was essential to convey information visually in a consistent way, by always using three elements: icon, color, and word. By doing so, we also make sure that the players with reading impairment or color blindness of any sort still understand our game. Here's a few examples that show how it works in game. Sound-wise, we followed the same idea, by having common textures in sounds of the same category to give consistency and readability of the sound palette. To show that, let's hear an example of the sound you hear when a player stabilizes on a zone and when the enemy mourns on a zone. Now let's talk a bit about the artistic direction. A Kelt's Old world is set in a mythological past, in a young world brimming with life, being at its early stages of creation where gods, beasts, and humans still coexisted. We had the unique challenge to bring a non-existent fantasy tale to life, while filling it with specific historic influences that would make it feel coherent and truly Celt. As such, we worked to learn the visuals and sounds that might have characterized the scenery a long time ago, and reimagined a myth filled with the aforementioned and adaptations of our own. The other challenge as a top-down strategy game was to keep the screen as clean and as readable as possible. It was a must not to impair the comprehension of an already complex game. So in turn, we decided to go with a low-poly style that not only helps that purpose, but also gives us a lot of freedom to stylize and adapt visuals as we need. This way, we could embrace the natural geometric aspect of the style and also make hex tiles fit perfectly within the look of the whole environment.
Indeed, there were a lot of researches made on how would sound the score of a Kelt's Ode. Following our intention to go more towards mythology than historical accuracy, we allowed ourselves to gather Celtic instruments from all ages. For the music to be as authentic and qualitative as possible, we also recorded musicians to sing and play the instruments. The whole process was very inspiring and collaborative, We first recorded jam sessions where we would improvise around musical ideas. Then we would gather what we did to build the music of the game and further improve it with ideas given by the musicians. Moreover, the music is evolutive, as you could hear, according to in-game actions. During encounters, the music changes with the different faces and shifts gradually towards more abstract textures when the morning increases. More layers are also added when you fulfill objectives on the map. Here is another extract to show that. Music helps to highlight the uniqueness of our characters. Let's talk more about them. Here we see our main characters for the vertical slice, Kachurigan and Garaluka. They carry objects and dress in garments heavily inspired by Celtic Gaulish culture, mixed with a touch of the fantastic mythical aspects, influenced by the land they tread on. For instance, Kachurigan on the left sports a traditional Gaulish warrior outfit, completed with a big shield specific to continental Celts, and Garaluka on the right carries a cornix. Both of them have 3 box incorporated in their bodies, protecting them to reflect a young human race, freshly created, still in tune with nature. Both of them use simple animation flowcharts, as depicted here. Thanks to a clearly defined move set, we can rely on a few individual animations, and we use them for different ends. Besides, each main character has a lead instrument that represents them during combat, the harp for Garaluka and the bagpipe for Kachurigan, and also have their own singing voice during narrative phases.
Now we come to the danger corrupting the land, the mourning, a physical manifestation of the goddess Devona's grief, a flood impacting the world as a consequence of the tears shed by the water goddess. We turn to sea life for its design, evoking the lacrimal quality of salt waters. Unnatural glowing corals, sponges, anemones from which the color has been sucked out, sprout, invade, and sink the land into primordial waters. During the encounter, they play a big role in feedbacking the player's progression, taking more and more space as the turns go by, or reducing in size when stabilizing the zone or pacifying enemies. Physicalizing the threat of the mourning meter looming and the effect it has on the world. They even shake and tremble on certain actions that affect the meter, communicating its nature as one entity and the enemy to fight, taking the player's focus onto area control, stabilization and curing, and away from violence. Sound-wise, we try to emphasize the fact that the corals representing the mourning are living creatures that spread like disease. Just as characters, they also have their own instrument, which is the violin, an instrument that conveys Devona's wailing. All songs related to the mourning have that wet and swarming aspect. Let's hear some of them. The mourning is also corrupting all sorts of mythical creatures, big and small, driving them mad with sorrow and pain, turning them violent. The mourning is using them to spread itself like a parasite would. The encounters gravitate around the curing of the beings all throughout the game. We plan to offer a large panel of fantastical beasts inspired by diverse folklores of Celtic origin. In the vertical slice, we meet the Tarvacons, stone guardians of the ancient places of worship. Their design is inspired by the megalithic structures of the Stone Age.
Of course, when we meet them, they are not in the best shape and not acting like themselves. In the sound design, we use a horn for their voices, giving the feeling of them moaning and suffering from the corruption that poisons them.
Now, let's talk about the overall game and the Kelso experience. Here is how it would proceed. As a reminder, the myth presents the expedition of 4 Celts seeking a solution for the disaster that is the mourning. The flood engulfed the riverbank, sweeping away and destroying nearby buildings and forcing residents to flee to higher ground. Garaluka and Caturigan, facing this disaster, decide to set off on an expedition to find a non-flooded, practicable and fertile land. So they hit the road, discovering the extent of the flood damage. During their expedition, they cross paths with Kudoleno and Magurix. Altogether, they travel to achieve their different goals, surviving. But why is the world the way it is? What can we do as mere humans to survive? Is there even a solution? What caused all of this? Did the goddess, the All-Mother, abandon us? Little by little, as they interact with the world and creatures, they come to understand the reason of the flood. The gods are as confused as them by their mother's grief. They learn that the goddess Devona, their mother goddess, has been crying for days without stopping, creating the flood, creating the corruption that now is called the mourning. But as you proceed, you face 2 major points of view, leading you to a choice. What to do? Leave and seek for a more stable land? Or try to appease and heal the grieving goddess? Can we do that as humans? And so ends the game. One of a range of possible endings, all influenced by the choices and information you will gather during your adventure. But be reassured, choosing one path rather than another does not close the other choices from you if you want to have a perfect ending. On the production level, we decided to divide the game in 5 main production units, 1 for each big chapter, questioning, gathering, discovering, and choosing, and 1 for the introduction and conclusion of the game. Each one will take around 4 months of work. So, in a Kelso, we propose a non-linear narrative that adapts to the player action and choices. We aim to offer a myth shaped by your choices. It will be your myth and not your neighbor's. Depending on the zone you choose to stabilize during an encounter, you won't have access to the same path. Each path will lead you to discover and experience different things without distracting you from the main story. By implementing Ink, a narrative scripting language, in the game, we will be able to offer a narrative that is reactive to players' different actions. Tightly linked with the exploration system, it will allow us to avoid the linear feel of the adventure and give you the feeling of putting your fingerprints on events, game experience, and the myth the druid narrates you. Here is an example taken in the vertical slice. Remember, earlier we decided not to touch the mourning in the corrupted Tarvacon body. But what would have happened if we didn't? Let's look.
They looked like porous stones. What could they be? Garaluka moved slightly, the thought of touching them still on her mind. But Caturigan's dark glare relieved her again from this dangerous curiosity.
A new line of dialogue, showing us the very first consequences of touching the mourning in the Tarvacon's body, a decision that could have much, much bigger consequences in the future. So, let's talk about the progression system. It's based on the following elements. First, a skill pool. Each character has a defined archetype and their own skills. You can unlock different ones as you progress through the game and create your own skill set and refine your strategy. There is also experience gain, rewarding the completion of encounters and the choices you will make during the game. The skills you unlock will be impacted by your progress and choices. Then, it's also a story-driven progression, enabling narrative integration. The general progression of the characters is integrated into the overall story. Key events coincide with significant characters, developments, and growth, creating memorable moments.
About the work done in Engine, the procedural generation tool evolved a lot through the production. In addition to the hexagonal grid creation, pathfinding, and everything we already presented you, it is now generating every meshes needed for VFX feedbacks, like tiles overlays, the zone borders, or the skills highlights. But it is not its only use, as once we created the map, we can set up zones and have direct feedback of the decal fitting the zone tree structure. We still have the landscape hexagonal grid feature, which was left unused for the sinkhole, but could be used for other levels. The important point that this all means is that we can iterate through paper prototypes, which was the initial design process, and integrate the game pretty quickly in Engine. The production was done with the will to produce something reusable, which basically means that every data you see is tweakable and centralized in databases. As you can see, here is an example of how the skills highlight works. It's a kind of shader animation that lerps dynamic materials through curves that we can set up and even review in one of our test maps. We can also plug sounds, cliffs, UI, and this is the same process for the Tarvocon behavior state machine. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. And this is the same process for the Tarvocon behavior state machine that we updated to have equal chances to go to 4 main intents, and a special one that is bound. Working. Up. Okay, it's back. And yeah, a special state that is bound to the last one. The turn-based structure was also updated for UI and camera purposes to improve some phases like the morning one or the zone reactions and the victory.
For the accessibility, we integrated the full remapping of the controls. For the difficulty level, we propose an easier version of the game. Even if the game is destined to core player, we wanted to propose an option to give access to more casual players. So here you can see that the enemies are weaker and the characters are stronger. We also developed a concept to play the game with one click, inspired by the automatic scanning on Windows. Here are some mock-ups to illustrate our ideas. So it automatically passes to inputs, and when the player wants to click on the desired input, they just have to click. There are still some points that need reflection. Like how can we give access to the camera with one click, and how can we move the characters during the exploration parts? As we already said it before, we created an iconography system to not convey information only by color.
So, the tactical RPG landscape is quite complicated. There are a few big shots, like AAA studios that release full-price games, like Midnight Sun, Mario Rabbids, or Baldur's Gate. Obviously, that's not who we're competing against. Our competitors are more niche, like reasonably expensive tactical PC games without physical release. Games like Solasta, Banner Saga, Trials of Fire, or even Gloomhaven, which is also a board game. Those games were quite successful, and they had a price point between $20 to $30. And we want to differentiate ourselves from those games with our unique universe, inspired from the Celtic culture, as well as our unique tactical system, which disemphasizes the encouragement system from violence.
'Cause, yeah, I think it's important to mention that the game is not only about the tactical aspect, but also about the story. So, for example, the game is about the Norse gods, and the story is about the Vikings, and the Vikings are the bad guys.
And now let's talk about how we're going to make the game. So we had a quick conception phase, and we are now full in the midst of the pre-production. We've been working on these vertical slides for 4 months, and we do think that in order for the game to be completely production ready, we need about 2 more months of work to have more work on the exploration phases and have a better estimation of what the scope of a production unit can be. When it's done, we'll work for 18 months, 4 months per production unit. We'll give ourselves 3 months of polish, enough to balance the game, to bug fix it, and to make sure that our main accessibility features that Jane just talked to you about is ready for launch. After that, a small part of the team will work on the base game, while most of the team will start to work on the DLC. We want this DLC to be quite big, so we are going to give them 1.5 production unit time of development, and because we're going to give it 6 months of development for the first one, we want it to be ready in the year following the game's release. All that means that the base game and the first DLC will cost us around 1.2 million euros. So we are going to sell the game 30 euros and its DLC 15. And if we take a breakpoint price that we take out from this, that means that the game will break even in this first year of exploitation. We'll need to sell 80,000 copies, and the DLC need to have an attachment rate of 12% to work. And now, before we leave you, let's get one last look at the games and at what happens after the encounter that Faye showcased to you earlier today.
Exhausted, they let out a sigh of relief. They finally turned towards the mother's altar. A few smaller black growths had taken hold near the base, but it did not seem corrupted. Garaluka prayed to the mother, but her pleas remained unanswered. All she could hear were distant cries of immense sorrow. A fair point, don't you think? Surely the mother had something to do with the world's balance being thrown into disarray. But the first step would be to find their missing companions. Let's hope that Magarix and Kudolino were safe. The old hermit, from his long life of adventures, would surely know more about this.
Okay, so just one last thing. So we 9 are the team of Catsode, but the game would never ever have been possible without Marine working on the game as a UI artist, and Niels, who is somewhere. Come, Niels is there. And also without Romain, our archaeologist, working with us, as well as the 4 musicians working who worked on the game. Sarah, Leo, Thibaut, and Alexandre. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, wants to start with questions, remarks? Yes.
Hi, so Cécile from Focus. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was, especially with this kind of game design, which is a bit complex, it was really easy to follow, to understand. I think, yeah, I think I can say where you're going and what it's going to be, and now I really want to play it. And also congrats, because compared with the first presentation, which was already okay, like we can see that you have come a long way. So really, congrats on that. I just have one question. I would have many more, but for now, just one. It's on the relation between the exploration phases and the tactical phases. Like, I think I got that you unlocked some kind of abilities during the exploration, but I'm not too sure about that. And so I wanted to know whether the exploration phases actually had an impact on the tactical and vice versa. Thank you.
Hello. Working now. Yes.
Allô.
Hello, thank you for your feedback. It's working right now? Yes. So, yeah, the exploration phase helps you to discover more about the narrative and the lore, because you will have different paces. When you end an encounter, as you see, the floor is rising. If you just stabilize one area, it will just rise on the part of the cenote of the arena, and not the other one. If you stabilize both, you will have access to both paths. And depending on what you're going to do, and where you're going, where you will be leading to go, you will have different events that will allow you to unlock and develop or upgrade some of your skills. Some skills will be story-driven, so you will unlock them depending on which sides, which path you will take, and some of them will be specific on which path you will have at the end of the encounter. In order to give this impression and this feeling of this is your myth, this is your tale, and not the one of your neighbors. And also have this aspect of trying to have playing again the game in order to find another way of completing it. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Milan. I'm doing marketing for Raccoon Business. As Cecile said, really congrats on the presentation. We spoke last time and I told you I didn't understand a thing about gameplay on the presentation. Now it's pretty clear. It's even better from some professional pitches I have seen. So yeah, congrats on that. It should just arrive before the story, on my opinion, because it's better, but that's okay. I do have a question regarding enemies, because a lot of gameplay is related on being able to see what the enemy will be doing. And in the video, at one point, enemy is moving 2 steps forwards, and you say, hey, it's say like they will do a big attack afterwards. How do you know that when you play a game, when you encounter a new enemy or what? So.
If I understand correctly, like, how do you know that the move 2 is followed by a big attack? The first time you don't. But hopefully you understand that after fighting the Tarbacons a bit. You know, it's the idea of also adding some layer of learning how the game worlds function and using that in your planning. But it's the first time you see that, it's like, oh, they're just moving too. Why? Because they're not doing anything.
Okay, so you just not have a tooltip where you can see all the attacks the enemies can do, etc. Like, it's not something you plan to have.
I think maybe we could have something like that in an in-game menu, but this is really for the players who want to go really big brain on the game. So I don't think it should be top level, you know. But it's like on Slay the Spire, the enemies have state machines like that. But it's nowhere in the game. If you want to learn that, you have to go into the wiki, but no one needs it in order to just play the game naturally.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Aurélien. I work at Prismatic. Thank you for your presentation. Everything was super neat and clear. Congratulations for withstanding the technical issues without you losing your cool. That was very nice. I just have one gameplay question. Why did you choose why did you choose to move only one character by turn, and how did you make sure that this choice is aligned with your persona needs and engagements?
Oh, all right, yeah, so that's a very good question. Actually, moving one character every turn is a way to restrict the decision space. Here it's because we have two characters, so we're not going to allow you to move the two characters. If you have more characters, we might allow, depending on the parameters of the map, the number of enemies, maybe more character activations per turn. We have systems that were in the paper prototype that didn't make it into this version to incentivize not activating your character several times in a row. So to give benefits to switching the characters, to create like this neat little decision space of which characters do I activate, which ones do I leave in danger, which one am I trying to use as a way to create incremental advantages as I don't activate them, stuff like that. You know, it's really just to add texture to the decision space, because if you can activate all your characters every turn, it's just like there's no decision here. And it was a way to make it a bit more interesting, a bit more puzzly, a bit more tense as to how you're going to navigate these turns, and to give weight to the enemy intents, right? Because you know what the enemies are going to do. It's very powerful, so we have to counterbalance that, and it's a way to leverage that in order to create more interesting decisions.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jeanne. I'm a game artist in freelance. First, congratulations for your presentation and for your work. I had a remark about the visual aspect. I felt like it was a little bit one tone when you see the overall screen, very green and gray, and I feel like in a strategic game, a top view like this, you could win by having a stronger effect, different color values in the bush, the trees on the ground, stronger light effects, part in the shadow, etc. That I felt like I missed something like that, but that's my remark.
I was just going to say thank you for the feedback.
Hello, I'm Clémentine. I'm a freelance designer. Congrats for your presentation. I had a question about the rising of the morning, if I use the correct terms. You said it was the hardest feature to make your players understand. Do you know why?
Yep. It's because it's a complex system. It's like, it's two things in one, right? It's like, you've got this turn limit, but it's an implicit turn limit because the morning is rising by a fixed amount at the end of every turn. So here it was rising by 5 at the end of every turn. So the morning meter is split into segments of 5 morning points. But every time a segment is full, you cannot go back down, right? So if you've got like 8 morning in the overall morning meter, you can only reduce it by 3. Even if you slice for like 15, you're not going to reduce it below a segment, right? So there's this little intrinsic complexity that's here for balance and design reasons, like to make to make it feel interesting, because it's like it creates this dynamics in the decision space where the interest of solacing rises and like it waxes and wanes as the morning fills segments. And so you've got an opportunity cost to not solacing when it's very interesting, because it might you might lose that opportunity and lose more turns, right? Because every time a segment is filled, even if it's by the enemy's action, you're losing a turn in essence, because it's always raising by 5 and you can never go back down. So it's always raising and you're always losing segments, so you're always losing turns. Segments are turns, and that's it's a cognitive leap, you know, to make. And so it was kind of hard to find a satisfactory way to communicate that in the UI and the UX. I don't know if I answered your question.
Partly. I think you use a lot decision making for your players to justify decisions. I might encourage you to be careful, because if a feature is not understood, there will be no decision making. And a lot of variables may be a little bit hard to, if you have too much variables, it might be a little bit hard to have everything in control. And what my hypothesis is about the morning rising is it's a little bit unclear because it's not gameplay related. I was a bit surprised that the water rising did not suppress tiles on the map. And I think that that could be what you miss with this feature, because that would be very clear for the player. I have a limited time and I have limited space. That's what is my challenge, you know. And for me, it's not just about, okay, I can add 4, I gained 5 and I reduced only of 3 and this kind of thing that is very complex. And I'm not a big fan of strategic games, so maybe I'm not the target, and that's on me. But yeah, if there is a complexity right now, I think it's because the variable is not connected at all with the gameplay, and it could be in such a simple way. And so, yeah, you're not going to change it now, and it's not in your concept, I understand that. But the fact that you remarked that it was so hard to make players understand might be related to the fact that it's a variable that is completely disconnected from the rest.
It was hard to make them understand, but they understand now. It meant it was a design challenge. It's not, they do not understand it in the way it is currently.
So now how you featured it in the game, it's understandable for your players?
Yeah, I think it play tested well.
Yes, actually, they globally all understand the morning gauge. When they didn't understand, it was because I did not explain very well the link of the morning gauge. But after I explained it more, they truly understand what the morning gauge. They understand that if they do not reduce the morning, they lose turn to play.
Yeah, okay, so for me, in a playtest, you don't explain anything, so I'm a bit confused.
Because there is no tuto, so I was like the tutorial. I had to explain some of the basics informations to allow people to play.
Okay, so my feedback for you, if you allow me, would be to be careful when you have a game with a lot of mechanics of systems that are very complex, to pinpoint really fast what are the features that are the most hard to understand, and not just stop at, okay, we can explain it with a tutorial, so it's good, and try to find how to integrate it with the design as most as possible.
We didn't stop at that, actually. It underwent like a lot of work and design work. And
I'm not saying that you didn't do the work, okay? I'm just trying to explain something and to just underline some point, but it's okay if you don't take the feedback, but yeah, you don't have to like explain yourself at each time, it's okay.
But I agree with the feedback. That's why we did not do what you said.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to note that you have a game with a lot of little shaders. There's a little shader for the water, and the plants are moving, stuff like that. It's nice. It's hard to make that in a short period of time. So well done. Well done. It's cool to see something moving. So yeah, well done. I think that you pulled a lot of the things that you announced, even in terms of gameplay, they are playable. It's a big game. How did you do it? Did you have to crunch a bit or not? Be honest.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's working. I don't know if it's crunch, but yeah, we spent some weekend working with Niels like as friends, just sharing good moments and beers and crepes, galettes.
Don't become a boss. No, yeah.
We didn't have the pressure to work, but indeed we worked a bit some weekends, and yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it was mostly for fun.
If you don't do that in the work environment, because you will burn very fast. But yeah, it shows because it's very polished and the game is very huge. So yeah, be careful not to take this habit because it could burn you very quick.
I do agree, and we did that with Niels. Like it was the last student project I have to do, and like now with like a true job, I won't do that like it was the last time, and yeah, it was also fun.
Thank you for your feedback. I will just add something. Not all the team crunched, and it was for a very short period of time. So we're not on this level of working from the very start of the project. We made at the beginning of the project, we made, we wanted not to, crunch and just destroy ourselves. So we tried the best, and we tried to sleep too.
Just keep in mind that you had a class on that the class was not you didn't have a grade or something, but you had to keep that in mind. And for us, your hygiene of work is very important. And crunch is a culture, so you don't feel forced to crunch. If you do that without feeling forced to do it, then you didn't understand our class that you saw, I think, this year, okay? So be very careful about that, and for me it's very important, and it will be taken into account when I grade you on the project, and I engage the rest of the jury to do as well.
We will discuss about that after. Anyway, thank you. Let's congratulate the team, and once again. And let's welcome the last team of this morning.
Hello, we have
Run
a question
out.
online.
Let's put the lights down.
On a solitary day, the phone rings ominously, and the voice on the line delivers the news of your grandfather's death. You are now the sole heir to the family manor. Disconnected from your close ones for what feels like an eternity, this sudden call is a haunting echo from a forgotten past. The voice whispers a cryptic invitation to pass on the keys to the estate, beckoning you into a realm filled with mystery and foreboding. Upon the designated day, the man emerges as a custodian of the estate. The visit proceeds seamlessly, yet an unsettling sensation creeps beneath your skin upon revisiting this long-forgotten domain. The man gestures for your ascent upstairs, leading you to a precipice of emotions. When reaching the attic, a palpable silence envelops the room, heavy with unspoken truths. Before a word can escape your lips, the caretaker seals the door behind you, and the windows won't open, and the man is unresponsive. After a few moments in the darkness, the Super 8 projector of your childhood suddenly illuminates. Next to the machine lies a reel, and soon enough, it becomes apparent that what unfolds on the reels mirrors your surroundings. Burnout is a first-person horror game with time manipulation elements and a Super 8 found footage style. It's playable on PC and should last around 5 hours long.
In Burnout, we are trapped in a mansion by a mysterious man. Thanks to video recordings, we can gradually make our way through the mansion in order to escape, because every door opened in those videos also opens in the present. When it comes to the 3 Cs, the game is playable with mouse and keyboard or with the controllers in a FPS view, and players embody a weak character that cannot fight back enemy. Regarding the main gameplay loop, it's composed of 2 phases. The first one is the free roaming phase where the player can safely explore the place they are being trapped in, while identifying the next obstacle to overcome and looking for the next reel, the player can come across some lore. The second one is a survival horror phase and take place in the past through the reading of tapes. These 2 phases will play into one another as surviving and solving objectives in the recordings will help the character progress in the present. In the present, players will understand better what's going on in the building and find new reels on their own. As I said earlier, the main character cannot counterattack. However, they still have a few tools to avoid the monster that stalked them in the shadow, a flashlight to help them find their way around the dark mansion, and a rewind mechanic that they will unlock in the first few minutes of the gameplay.
So we will now show you a walkthrough of our vertical slice that is 100% captured in-game, and it's set in the first chapter right when we got locked in the attic, in front of the door that it's locked. And the thing is, it features a blend of mechanics that would normally be introduced later in story, though, for the purpose of showing you the whole experience. The video, it's a bit heavy.
We're going to talk a little bit about the progression system and the difficulty. At the start of the game, the player begins by being trapped in a room containing a video reel. That's what you saw at the beginning of the vertical slice. The gameplay phases in the video are more like levels. You have one objective to complete, and monsters are tracking you down. For the early phases in the game, in the past phases, the player encounters only one single monster. Completing the objective in the past allows the main character to unlock more rooms in the mansion. In these new rooms, another video reel can be found that will launch a next phase of the game, in which there is another type of monster. When back to the present, it's the same story again, completing objective, give access to more rooms and new reels, in which there is even more monsters. The idea is that the more the player progresses through the mansion, the more the player discovers the story of this place, and the more the phases in the tape become filled with danger.
The progression in the whole game would be settled in a vast manner. However, for the vertical slice, we only designed a fraction of it as a proof of concept. We ended up with 3 floors, 4 rooms, all connected by corridors and stairs. We had a lot in mind when designing the level, as we wanted to create fast-paced and engaging chases. The main intention was to create an arena allowing the players to move swiftly and with fluidity. To achieve this, the first imperative was to avoid dead ends in the level design. The only ones we have are hiding places, as you can see on the picture, that allows the players to avoid punctually the patrolling routes of the monsters. It grants these hiding places with a risk-reward tension. Another critical level design element was to create multiple routes. The players always have at least 2 options to escape the monsters. We wanted to complement the swift movement of the players with hesitation and doubt that should come from the choice of path they take to avoid the monster. To achieve this, we first worked on a macro level to create a maze composed of rooms and corridors. And within this macro maze, we also work at a micro level, creating sub-routes with pieces of furniture. And finally, to wrap it up regarding the level design, we needed the players to understand well the layout, where they were in the level design. So we made an in-game dynamic map to help the navigation. However, we don't want the players to only rely on the map to orientate themselves. We wanted the level design to be self-explanatory. So to help with it, we integrated some verticality. It has a lot of benefits. For instance, it creates multiple points of view to help orientation. It also helped us connecting better the rooms and creating interesting routes. And it also added a layer of doubt as the players could wonder where the sounds they are hearing come from. And finally, to ease navigation, we also worked a lot on the visuals.
The game takes place in a Victorian mansion with 4 accessible unique rooms. So we played with rooms of size and lighting scenarios to create different kind of mood and add tension to the experience.
As the environment is big and could change a lot during development, we made a tool with Houdini to quickly create walls, change their height, their style, and also their material. Also, we also created some other tools to make life easier, such as a tool to create beams and an auto placer also for the spider webs.
We wanted the physics of the game to immerse the players in their environment, as well as for it to be a mean for them to survive the mansion. We didn't aim for a perfectly accurate acoustic, as it would have been too CPU heavy, something which we already feared and faced when designing our realistic rewind feature. Using wide basic spatialization tools, as well as the wide spatial audio layers, we implemented simple sound propagation, virtual acoustics, and spatially informed audio with rooms, portals, and acoustic textures. And this allowed us to characterize rooms by placing their own room tones and sound objects in their specific reverbs, something which helped give realism to the monster's presence in the game. The players should fear silence and cling to each insignificant sound, and that's our way to create tension rather than relying on screamers.
In order to test our level design and objectives, we developed analytical tools such as a heat map system. It allows us to identify friction points, places where players were spending their time or not according to our threshold, and consider how to guide them through the level with objectives. These tools will be used later down the production line to playtest new layouts, reels, and situations.
So now about the rewind. As you have seen in the video, you can encounter deadly monsters in the past phases. If they catch you, you die. However, you might also have noticed the rewind feature. So indeed, thanks to the UMIG 2000, the device used to play the reels, the player can rewind the reel to avoid death or avoid taking a risky pass. However, the rewind is a costly resource with a limited amount of time to rewind from. You can use this ability as long as you have seconds of rewind available. If you run out of rewind and you die, it's game over. You have to retry the reel from the beginning.
As you can see here, the visual adapts to the player's remaining rewind. The less rewind remaining, the more the world of the tape burns and collapses on itself. As there are already a lot of post-processing effects on camera, we added the real burn effect directly into the environment. To make it easier, we developed a holes spawner that automatically places the holes on the surfaces of the environment.
Rewinding in the game can have multiple effects. For a moving object, it can simply mean to put it in the correct place and orientation depending on the moment. But when it's about the player or the monsters, which can do a lot more things and be in some unpredictable states, it becomes a lot more complicated. That's why we needed an architecture allowing us to record and store any relevant data depending on the involved actor. This structure matches the moment with a set of parameters. And by storing all of this information every 0.2 seconds, for example, every actor can retrieve it when needed and interpolate the value between the two closest. This gives us something very solid and customizable for extending the game in the future. When it comes to the sound, they are stored in a different structure, which contains their duration and a reverse version of the sound. When a sound is played, the game computes its progress each frame and stores it. This way, when the player is rewinding, every reverse sound can be played in due time, symbolized by the yellow star on this diagram.
Since we want the rewind system to be used in a certain way while providing a rather open-ended experience of exploration and decision-making, we kept an eye on the way player used and understood the rewind during playtest sessions. That way, we could easily translate the way player used the mechanic into actionables, like adjusting its values, changing the way it works, or thinking of more situations that encourages decision-making. We are confident that this method can be expanded for the rest of the production.
So now more details about the monsters. In the complete game, we aim at having 3 unique monsters, each with its specific abilities. Alone, they are easily avoidable. However, their abilities are meant to combine together and synergize, making them harder to manage as a team. We wanted behavior similar to the ghosts you can encounter in Pac-Man. So these monsters are also closely related to the character's story and past. They represent some of the character's relatives that made them suffer. Each monster operates with a ward. The roamer is a monster you have seen in the vertical slice. It's in the video, sorry. It's the only monster we implemented yet. It is blind and navigates through the level design thanks to the perceived sounds, urging the player to be silent. And so the roamer is accompanied by the mimic, its ward, who camouflages itself as a piece of furniture. When players come too close from it, it alerts the roamer and slows down the players.
Regarding the audio direction of Runout, it's supported by 3 complementary pillars, immersion, analogic, and subtlety. These pillars were the driving force to define an audio palette as well as to design and implement the systems. Regarding immersion, we had to do a lot of documentation and pay attention to details. We tried to be mechanically accurate and try to simulate realistic acoustics. For the analogic aspect, we tried to learn the horror vocabulary that is used in most games. And we tried to use low fidelity sounds with analog artifacts regarding the different reels. And also we wanted to add interactivity as a tool to create tension. And finally, for the subtlety part, we tried to use sound as a narrative tool and create tension through silence. Regarding the bestiary, 1/2 of the audio palette is dedicated to the creature sound design. And as previously said, our vertical slice showcases one of 3 monster word couples. To represent this symbiosis between monsters, we had to create a specific and coherent sound palette from which we could put and we could pull, to then create the physical presence of the roamer and the mimic. Those sounds are both feedbacks and narrative tools. As the design of our monster is systemic, we needed to give them understandable feedbacks to the player about their state in the world. And they also serve a storytelling purpose rather than talking directly to the player. The way sound should this way we wanted the sound to encourage the players to imagine what happened and how these creatures came to be. The other half of the audio palette consists of real and scarcely processed recordings that were selected mostly for their realistic properties. And having authenticity in mind, a short period of documentation was necessary, especially to figure out how the Umic 2000, which is a real a piece of gear, and the Super 8 cameras worked and sounded.
As we play through the lens of a Super 8 camera, we had to convince this feeling with the look of the game and the player's movements. So we made a post-process adding some parameters such as blur, color grading, sharpen, or fisheye. For the movements, we added 3 layers of screen shakes when the player is in idle, is walking, or is running. There is also a camera rotation lag.
Runout is a game where sounds plays an important role when it comes to survival. Since we didn't want to put hearing-impaired players at a disadvantage, we implemented a sound visualization system that displays visual indication of the game's sound. A pulsating circle at the center of the screen displays the sounds made by the player, and a visual audio wheel also displays the sounds heard around the player in the environment, such as door opening or the gargles and screams of the monster itself. The visual icons display the type of sound heard and grow in size depending on the intensity and their distance with the player.
To enhance immersion, our game plays heavily on camera effects and movement, and we've worked hard to ensure that these effects are pleasing, but we are also aware that they can be distracting for some. Therefore, we leave it up to players to adjust and deactivate the various camera effects as they see fit, such as vignetting, motion blur, head bobbing, and so on. Along with these options, we're also aware the problems inherent of the horror genre, which is why we thought about a fear reduction mode as well as a mode for arachnophobes due to the roamer's design.
Okay, so now that you've seen where we are, let me show you where we're going. So we want to add 2 more creatures, which we already have designed, but we still need to check how they interact together. So we need testing. And we also want to improve our level design, essentially making it bigger. And we already have 16 rooms in the engine. And as a quick reminder, we only put 4 in the vertical slice. But the level design needs testing, and that's important. Regarding the quest, we are aiming for a 5-hour experience, and for this, we have ideas, and because it's not enough, we need more ideas, and also testing. So all the testing means, all this testing means we need to iterate a lot, and therefore we need to increase our team velocity. And to do so, we are planning to have 1 more game designer to focus on the quest and narratives, and 1 more graph artist to lower the overall workload. We also want to streamline our production pipeline to make a more efficient use of our time once everything is tested and integrated. Very quickly, let's talk numbers. Very quickly, we already are a team of 9, and we worked for a little less of 3 months, which we estimate a value to be of 96,000 euros, according to some estimation made by SNGV. Although most of our systems are already implemented in the vertical slice, we estimate a production time of 20 months to be needed in order to achieve the overall quality we want, amounting to a budget of 700,000 euros. Our target price is 29.99, which means that if we include an average of 50% discount and the platform share, should lead us to 66,000 copies to sell to break even. And that's the end of our presentations. Many thanks to you and your attention, and we're open to any questions you may have.
Thank you. So who wants to start with questions or remarks? And I'm sorry for the people online. I missed your question just earlier. So I will be looking at it more carefully. So is there questions? Yeah.
Hello, I'm César from Asobo. I don't have any question. I just wanted to say that it looks great. I really want to play a full game with this idea. You have a really good idea, and seems like it's well made. Looks great, plays great. I don't know. It's very, very nice project. So good job. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Justin from Ubisoft, programming director. First, congrats, it's stressful. I have a question about Houdini. You used it to automate some things. I know that you experienced it. For you, was it faster to automate it and to use it, or would have it been faster to do it manually? And maybe it depends of each part you automated.
No, it's okay. So I'm not sure I understood the question, but was it like was it faster to create the walls first?
Was it know that you have done it? Does it seem faster for you to automate things and develop the automation, or
yes,
would
I think it was because we had a lot of
our game designers were very prolific with ideas, so we need to change the level design many times. So it was a good investment because we needed to change the level design many times. So yes, I think it was worth it overall.
And was it also for walls, beams, or holes?
Yes,
yeah, for everything you think is.
No, the holes, like the beams also were made directly in Unreal because I did not learn Houdini at that time, but I learned it with the walls, but not the webs. It's just completely blueprints, the webs.
Thank you.
Hi, Laura from Pledges. I had a question related to the difference between present and past. How do you show it to player? Where are we when we play? Are we in the present? Are we in the past? I'm not sure it's clear enough. But anyway, congrats for the presentation because it was really cool.
So the first idea at the beginning was to create two atmospheres. For the present, it was meant to be by day. So it was a sunny environment with maybe more damages on the walls. And recently we also added on the tapes, when you play a tape, you have the title that is on the top left corner. Maybe it was not enough. Maybe we have to work more a lot about, on the lighting, on the present. But yeah, definitely it's not enough. Thank you for your feedbacks.
Yeah, thank you. And also regarding the sound design with these aspects, we tried to put a constant ambience of the tape running, and not the tape, the reel. And it was too much. So, and we tried lowering it down, and it was not enough. So we decided to cut it, and it's definitely something we should improve. But yeah, we thought of it.
Yes, and so thank you. Yes, we were aware of this this improvement we have to make. This is also why I wanted to make this disclaimer before we launched the video, that although it's set at the beginning of the game for a story purpose, it blends mechanics that we found later. Which means, what I mean is, at first in the game, the two past and present should be very well identified, and the more we move on with the story, the more it blends together. And that's the choice we made for the vertical slice to show you that. But yes, we do need to improve technically, of course. Yes, we had this feedback. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Milan, marketing from Raccoon Business. I do have a question regarding store assets, because as you know, now horror game is a big trend. There is a lot of horror game mainly made by solo devs. They are using a lot of store assets, which leads in a lot of games similar to others. So I have a question, did you use store asset? If yes, what did you do to try to change it as your own? Like Inscription, for example, they use store asset but tweak it. So how did you work with that?
As we had, very changing level design, we made all the architectural elements by our own, like all the wall, the ceiling, the floor, the stairs, all of this. And as it is a kind of abandoned mansion, we have a few assets to put in the game. So we made all the mechanical, like the gameplay assets, such as the wheel, the humming, all those things. And we used 1 or 2 assets packs to kind of populate the mansion. We also used some Megascan textures that we tweaked to have, like for example, better roughness or better albedo. And I think that's it for the asset packs.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Aurélien, Prismatic. Thank you. I was like super amazed by the presentation. Just one quick game design question. How are you planning to keep the player engaged during the 5 hours of play? Do you have extra features planned? What are your plans?
Well, that's one of our challenges. Of course, we have so the gameplay loop you have seen, which will be the main one. And it will progress in difficulty. It will progress. Sorry, it will progress in difficulty as we progress through the story, because we will have new monsters. And then we will have we will have combinations of monsters, so you can have the first monster, the second one, then in another one, the second and the third, and the way their abilities synergize are meant to grant something engaging at each reel. However, we still think that it will be quite, it won't last 5 hours. That's why Roberto talked about, for the further steps, hiring game designers about quests and story, to not just rely only on the mechanics of the chase, but also on to motivate the player through the narration. So that's what we plan.
And to add something really quick, regarding the narrative and the level design, we want to develop it as the player progresses through the story. We want the level design to be uncanny, to change reel after reel, and we want to develop narrative through this progression.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I might have missed it, so if so, I'm sorry. Since you're mentioning the narrative being a driver for the experience, how do you deliver it? Because we saw some notes, a piece of a short piece of movie. Like, how do you intend to deliver it?
Ideally, we would like to have only narration through the environment. Regarding sound design, maybe you want to answer. We have a lot. Just finish quickly. We have also ways to convey it through sound design. He will explain it further. But yes, it's mainly through items you would encounter during present phases, mainly, because to give more importance around the present phases. And yes,
and we did not show it on the vertical slice because, in the sake of the scope and the production, we have an NPC, another character that trapped you in the mansion, and this one will be a centerpiece of our narrative because it's not really a killer or a psycho. It's just like the monster. It's just a ghost of the mansion, and we want to talk about this character through the progression.
Okay, it's just that for now it looks like you have a cool, short gameplay session, but as you mentioned, you still need more game design ideas, maybe some ways of introducing, like, because what you can do with the environmental storytelling in that kind of setting is it might be a bit limited. So you would need to find clever ways of staying in this fantasy, but being able to, add something more. So I mean, this is cool, but maybe to go to the next step might require an extra effort. Thank you, it was nice. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see other hands. neither on the online. So if it's fine for anybody online or here, so let's congratulate the team once again. And all the teams of this morning. And let's have a break. So as I said earlier, you can seize the time during this break after lunch to go see the teams on site, discuss with them, test their vertical slices, and let's meet again at 2 for the people online. So again at 2, thank you for following us. And for the jury, we will meet downstairs for the lunch. So thank you for this morning and congrats.